I don't see anyone on with us yet, but our topic today is from conflict to cooperation, and has to do with positive behavior guidance. And I'm waiting to see if we have any viewers on. I can't tell if I do or not, but I'm hoping you're here. I'll give you a little bit of my Hi, Navi. Thank you. I'll give you a little bit of my background history. When I started off a little bit differently, like I wasn't, I didn't know I was going to go into a field that had to do with childcare. And when I became a mother, my son was 3, and thank you. And my daughter was 10 days old. And I basically went to my first parenting class and I said, either the 3-year-old is moving out or I'm moving out. I just found my son incredibly challenging. I was, had a 10-day-old baby in my arms. And I just found him incredibly challenging. I thought, I thought I had the capabilities of being a good mom. I was young. I was, married young, and I had him when I was almost 25. But I just felt really stumped. And so I started taking these parenting courses. It was through the Adlerian Institute at the time. And it filled me up. It just gave me the confidence that I did not have as a parent. And I took every course that they offered, and then eventually I took their leadership training so I could teach parenting. I went back to school as a mature student and studied in the field of early childhood education. This is my passion, and this is what I love, and I've worked with many, many families and childcare and schools and so on. And the biggest topic always, always, always is handling behavior. And for me, it's always exciting because it's like a puzzle, or, going with your magnifying glass. It's like trying to understand what that behavior is trying to communicate, because that's what it is. It's a form of communication, but sometimes we respond to the behavior and not really what the underlying reason is underneath. So, just to give you an example, when my son was little, and he was just feeling really angry, and I didn't know why he was angry. And sometimes kids can't express that. They don't know why they're angry. So it just helps to be okay with that feeling, that, we don't have to talk them out of how they feel. We don't have to judge how they feel. We just validate how they feel. So it's like, you're showing me you have a lot of angry feelings. And if they can't express why, because some children, when they're upset, they're not capable to do that. And we know from brain studies that when we're upset, our reasoning, our rational brain shuts down. And so we can't articulate how we're feeling in that moment. But our visual cortex, part of our brain, stays open, so we can see things, but we can't express. So I gave him a piece of paper and a pencil, and I said, maybe you want to show me how you're feeling. And he just started stabbing at this paper, and I said, oh, you have a lot of angry feelings. And then, handing him more paper, he's just stabbing at this paper. And I basically just kept verbalizing, like, you have a lot of angry feelings. And then at the end, we had this, like, full of crumpled papers everywhere. I said, well, let's go get a garbage bag and throw away these angry feelings. So I went and got a garbage bag, and he threw away the angry feelings. And I never knew specifically what he was upset about. And in that moment, it really didn't matter. So what ended up happening was just having that validation that it was okay to be angry, that he had a place to place that feeling, made a huge difference. And what the keys that I found, like just like the gems, and it's not just for children, it's all of us. So, when we're parenting, we're getting to the core of our inner child, and our kids sometimes push those buttons. The core of all this is have the feelings validated. We all need that. We need our feelings validated, and children need to feel a sense of validation and power in their lives too. So there's no you can never be too young to validate feelings and make them feel empowered. So, for example, just to say, like, you're showing me that you're really upset. So I always use Ben, my son Ben. He's now 39, but he was a good example for me, because he was the one that sent me on this trajectory, and I really appreciate it. So he was 6. I was a young mom, newly separated. He was 6, his sister was 3, and he was being naughty. Something happened. He was just, being maybe disrespectful or rude or something. And he was watching TV, and I turned off the TV, and he turned it back on. And I said, no, Ben, we're not watching TV right now. And I turned off the TV, turned it back on. He's like, now we're like chasing each other around the TV. And I'm like, okay, no, we're not going to do this. I said, you know what? I need to kind of calm myself down right now, because I feel I'm getting upset, and you need to calm yourself down, and then we can come together and try this again. So he went up to his room. It wasn't like a punishment thing. It wasn't like, go to your room. It was just like, we both need to kind of cool off. And in the past, he would have trashed his room. That would have been his way of dealing with it, just trashed his room. It was very quiet up there, kind of suspiciously quiet. And he was in grade 1, so just learning to write. And a few minutes later, and we left it that when he felt ready to kind of work this out again, that he could come see me. So I left it open-ended, like, you know what, let's both cool off. And when you're feeling a little better, we can talk about this. Come see me. So he's at the top of the stairs, and he throws a note down at me. So I thought, that's kind of interesting, but he's got this like look on his face like there's something up. So I get the note and I read it. The spelling's not perfect. It's supposed to say, Mum, I hate you. But it was spelled Moom, M-U-M-E, I hat you. But he spelled F-U-C-K perfectly, okay? So I'm reading this note, and he's got this little smirk on his face. He's waiting for some reaction. I said, oh, Ben, I see that you chose to write a note to me to express how you're feeling, that, that you were angry, and that that was very mature of you to like write a note and tell me. And I said, would you like me to read the note to you? And he's like, okay. So I sit on the stairs with him, and I read it the way he wants me to, like the way he meant it to be. Mom, I hate you. And I said, oh, you've got some really strong feelings here. And then the F-U-C-K, I didn't say it out loud. I said, no, I see you chose to use another word here to, to tell me you're feeling angry. And I said, just to let you know, there's a whole lot of other words you can use that are actually very mature or intelligent that you can use to express when you're feeling angry. I said, sometimes you might hear kids on the bus, maybe teenagers on the bus using that word a lot. And I said, they just haven't realized that there's a lot of other intelligent words you can use to express your feelings when you're angry. I'm really mad, I'm really upset, I'm disappointed, I'm not happy about this. Like, there's other ways you can express your angry feelings. And then I said to him, would you like me to read it to you the way you wrote it? He's like, okay. And so I read it like, Moom, I hat you. And he thought that was so funny. We had a laugh. And I said, Ben, I'm really impressed that you felt really angry with me, and you wanted to share that with me, and you wrote it in a note. And I was like, that's very mature. And he was just like feeling it. And he said, oh, can we put the note on the fridge? And can we share it with Grandma? Can we show Grandma? And I said, you know what? We'll make this note special to us. So the piece I want to highlight here is, had I overreacted to Mom, I hate you, or F-U-C-K, it would have given it a lot of power and energy that would have basically reinforced that negative behavior, okay? Because we can give positive attention or negative attention, but attention's attention. Kids don't differentiate. So if we give negative attention, it's just as rewarding as positive attention. So I didn't overreact to that. I said, okay, he was giving me the language he had as a 6-year-old. Had I said, oh, of course you don't, hate me. That's a terrible thing to say. We don't say that none of that. No judgment. I just said, okay, this is how you expressed it. And I never had an issue with him swearing ever after that, because again, I didn't make a big deal about it. And there is a beautiful book called Liberated Parents, Liberated Children. And it's basically kind of a journal about these different parents that are taking this parenting course and their kind of journey with it. And this one mother had 2 daughters, and she tended to put a lot of pressure on her older daughters, like, oh, you're older, you should know better, having to make her be sort of more mature than her years, or, suck up being a big sister. And so one of the things she had learned in this parenting class that particular evening was to validate her child's feelings. So when she came home that night, her older daughter was really upset. She's like, I'm so mad at whatever, my little sister, because she was touching my stuff. And the mom thought, okay, in the past she would have said, oh, she would have placated her, or sort of stuffed those feelings down and said, oh, you're older, you know better, but instead she didn't do that. So this time she said, oh, that's tough. That must be really, upsetting for you when your sister gets into your stuff and you don't like that. And it opened up this volcano of lava. Okay. So her older daughter started to just spew. I hate her. I wish she'd never been born, and just all this like venom. And the mom in the past would have responded and be like, of course you don't hate her, and undo what she's saying. And instead, she would have contradicted her and said, of course you don't feel that way. But instead she's like, oh, you have some really strong feelings about, your sister. You're very upset. And the mom's knees were just shaking. And she's like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, she just thought, I've unleashed something here. And she was so distressed. But she did not shame her daughter for her feelings. She just stayed with her and validated, like, thank you for sharing how you're feeling. And I didn't know that you had such strong feelings. So that night when she went to tuck her older daughter into bed, her older daughter wasn't in her bed. So she went to her younger daughter's room. And the older daughter, this always touches me, actually, chokes me up a little bit. The older daughter was in bed with the younger sister, cuddling her. And what the value of this is that there's a beautiful expression is, which you have to let the bad feelings out before you can let the good feelings in. You can't stuff good feelings on top of bad feelings. If you're upset, someone's like, oh, be nice. No, you can't be nice when you're upset. You have to have a release. That mom did not need to solve anything with that child. She just needed to validate and identify how she was feeling. And when she did, the daughter's true feelings of love came out. That's what came out. She said all that ugliness of what she felt. She wasn't judged for it. And what her true feelings were love for her sister. But she needed to have that opportunity to release it. So that piece to me is like the key in connection with our kids. Because you know what? When children are misbehaving and when they're at their worst is the time when they need us the most. They need that connection the most, but they behave in a way that they're at their most difficult. And when sometimes it's hard to love them in that moment, but that's when they need our love the most. And one of the things I suggest is to not put fire with fire. So if the kid is in fire, then we need to de-escalate. And this is any age. I mean, I'm talking from like little to our teenagers. Just don't put fire with fire. Like just bring it down, okay? And language, just using that language we model for our kids, like, I'm feeling upset with the situation, not making the kid feel blamed for it's like, I'm really angry with you. You know what? This situation is making me feel upset. I'm feeling angry with this situation. I feel like I need to calm myself down, or I need a pillow and I just need to get my feelings out. I talk about children having, little kids having big feelings in a little body. They have a lot of intelligence, but they don't have the emotional intelligence. They don't know how to, they didn't know how to, deal with all those feelings, right? So like big feelings in a little body. So you can't expect, I'm trying to read something, right at their worst, so they need the most. Oh yeah, my pleasure. We can model too. I need to just take some deep breaths here. And sometimes when I said you have to let the bad feelings out to let the good feelings in, the other beautiful one is change a mood, not a mind. Okay, you can't talk somebody out of how they're feeling, but you can change a mood. And sometimes just being goofy and silly. It's like Barbara Colarosa, the beautiful parenting guru, talked about how she taught high school, and she did a workshop, and I went as an early child educator, and she said something about how we shouldn't have to earn something, like earning a party, for example. She's like, how many of you, she's like, got the dishes done before you got here? How many of you got the laundry done? That kind of things. Like, you don't have to earn something. And she said that sometimes in her class, if everybody was just having a bad day, she would just kind of throw her arms up. It's like, we need a party. It wasn't a reward system. It was like, change the energy. We just got to change the energy here. Change the mood. So instead of like, chastising everybody and nagging at them, she's like, let's just change the mood. She put music on. It's like, change the mood. So, sometimes with our kids, we need to do that. Just, it's like, you know what? We're off track here. We need to change the mood. It's like, let's make funny faces. Let's jump up and down. Let's put on some music. Sometimes we just need to shift the energy a little bit. So I want to share a few stories that were pertinent to me in that working as a consultant in daycare centers, and I would get the most interesting SOS calls. And one particular was, you have to come in. All the parents are up in arms. This child is aggressive. The other parents want him demitted from the daycare. And it was like, everybody was like high panic. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, how old is this child? And he was like, he's 3. He's 3? Okay. So something I actually haven't shared with you yet is that I'm a very spiritual person. And I know that this workshop, this whole symposium, there's a lot of spirituality, and I am a spiritual person. I came from kind of an interesting spiritual background. I grew up in California in the 60s. Need I say more? But I had a mom who was a seeker. And so, we did mindful meditation when I was a young kid. It was kind of in our, I was raised with that. And so before I would go to a daycare center to go see what was going on, I kind of get quiet a little bit and just ask, help me to see what I need to see. And I just kind of go in a quiet state and kind of sit back like a little fly on the wall and just kind of observe. So I see the little guy that I've got my eye on, and the teacher's like very, she's very attentive, like keeping him close to her because apparently he's very aggressive, okay? And another little boy arrives with his mom and at the cubby, and another little boy arrives, and he goes up to the little guy I'm observing and gives him like a little shot in the arm with a smile on his face. And my little guy I'm observing gives him a little shot in the arm with a smile on his face. And but the mother, who's just arrived, chastises her. She's like, "Oh, that's not okay. We don't, hit our friend. That's not okay." Kind of giving him a hard time. So now he's been shamed publicly. This is not even the kid I'm watching. This is the little boy's arrived. He's being shamed publicly. Goes from this smiley face to like, and that's the end of that interaction. So in the course of like this little bit of time that I'm observing this little boy, I noticed that he hasn't spoken. There's been no verbal language. So I asked the staff, I said, does this little guy talk? I haven't heard any verbal language coming from him. And she goes, well, actually, no, he doesn't. And I said, well, that's interesting. He's 3 years old. There's no verbal communication. I said, that would be something that I should be called in for, ASAP if you have a child who's 3 who's not being verbal. I said, this is not aggression. This is dogs in the dog park. He's 3. He wants to be social. He wants to play. He doesn't have the verbal skills, so he's being physical. And this little boy who arrived knew that. He knew that was the language. I'm going to give you a little sock. You give me a little sock. We're connecting socially. And if you think about children who maybe English is not their first language, so again, there's going to be this physical interaction because they don't have the verbal skills. So what ended up happening is this child had been set up as the aggressor in this classroom. Other parents were up in arms about it. And so now by giving him all this attention for his negative behavior, he had now established behaviors like, oh, I get attention every time I hit or do something. So now all this work had to be undone. And my go-to always is do not highlight this child in front of everybody if he's misbehaving. Only say his name if he's doing something either positive or just neutral. So, we're very praise-oriented, and I'm not a big fan of that. There's actually something different. So there's a difference between praise and encouragement. So I'm going to touch on that in a second. So basically, it's if this child is misbehaving, do not announce it to the whole room. Instead, go up quietly and say, oh, it looks like you're trying to play with your friend here, or you want to turn, or you're just, again, validating his experience, just helping him with social skills. Oh, it looks like you would like a turn to play with so-and-so here. Let's do turn taking here. You put a block on, he'll put a block on. You kind of have to facilitate the play, but not announcing like, no, that's okay. Joey, no hitting, we don't hit our friends. Not publicizing that. And when the child is doing something neutral, it's like, hey, I see Joey playing with blocks over there. It's not good or bad. He just exists, okay? And we all need to be noticed and validated. When people say, oh, they want, what's that expression? It's like, oh, they always want attention. Well, who the heck has outgrown the need for attention? We all need attention. That's life affirming. We need attention. And so if we're not getting it in the positive way, then we're going to go for the negative. And with kids, that's very, we set them up. If they're not getting it the way they need it, they're going to do it in another way that they get it. So the difference between praise and encouragement is this, okay? Praise is, I'm the judge. I deem whether you're worthy of getting good job. I like the way you did that. I like the way Mary's sitting. Versus encouragement, which encouragement has the word courage in it. It also has the French word coeur. So in essence, what it means is to give courage to the heart, which is such a beautiful thing, right? So giving courage to the heart. And it's not based on an outcome. It's based on the effort, okay? So let's say a child is painting a picture, and instead of saying, oh, it's really pretty, oh, I really like it, which is the praise piece, it's, wow, you know what? I was watching when you were painting that picture. You looked very serious, like you were really very concentrated. And or I saw that big smile on your face when you were playing. And I was like, I see blue and yellow and green. Like, you don't have to ask, what is it? And what did you make? And tell me about your picture. And let's say volunteer. But you know what? It's like, I see blue and yellow and green. Or I saw you playing with those blocks and you were really like, for a long time, putting that all together. I was like, I was just watching with that. And the little face of like, you were watching me? One of the centers I was asked to come into was this little boy was very attention seeking, but always would do these very negative things for attention. So I said, you know what? Fill his bucket up. Like, just notice him for nothing. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, you know what? I see so-and-so walking where they're outside playing. I see him balancing on the ledge. He kind of looked up and he's like, oh, thanks for seeing me. Like, it's just being noticed. Often with conflict is we get into a power struggle, okay? And I've raised everybody from babies, as I said, I have 5 children. So I had my first when I was 25. I had my last, which was a surprise baby, at 45. And she graduated high school last year, and at 18 went off to Victoria. So I had been actively parenting for 38 years, and like nonstop, okay? And when I found out that I was pregnant at 45, talking about being spiritual, I'm going to share this little story with you. So her sister, at the time, I had a 5-year-old. Erica was 5. And I was in a difficult marriage, okay? It was emotionally and sometimes verbally abusive, and it was not a happy situation. I really wanted out of it, but I didn't know how to extricate myself from it and do it in a way that didn't hurt everybody. And when my 5-year-old, when my daughter was 5, her older siblings now had kind of moving, going off to school and so on, university, because there was a bit of a gap there. And I thought, oh, I can do this. I have a 5-year-old. I was imagining, it's like, okay, I can do this. We can do this. I can leave this relationship. And my 5-year-old would go up to women with babies and say, my mom's having a baby. And I'd say, why are you telling these mummies I'm having a baby, honey? I'm not having a baby. She's like, oh, yes, mommy, you're having a baby. And I said, are you wishing I'd having a baby? She's like, no, mom, you're having a baby. And I said, no, sweetie, I'm not having any more babies. She's like, oh, yes, mom, you're having a baby. That was October. November, I found out I was pregnant. I was like, okay, your little souls were in cahoots. And I kind of looked up at the heavens and I was like, really? And I was like, okay. I wasn't upset about the baby. I just was upset about that I had to stay longer in this relationship. And I was also upset because I hadn't slept for years. And I was like, I won't sleep till I'm in my 50s, which was kind of true. And interestingly, having that baby at 45 did help sort of shift some things that I was able to get out of the relationship, but in a really loving, gentle, mutual way that we were able to kind of part in a really nice way and move on, and that we've been able to stay, and it's a really lovely, amicable situation. So I'm really grateful for that. So sometimes the life lessons we have to learn, we just have to go with it. So this last child was the most energetic of all my kids, had the most energy of everybody. I was like, you had to give me that one. You had to give me that one at 45, the one that never sleeps, the one who's the most high energy kid, We had to install, at the time, I don't think IKEA makes it anymore, but we had to install this apparatus that you could have, like a climber, a swing, we had a trampoline. I mean, we had it all. It was like she would swing and climb, and it was all like in her bedroom. And she had an interesting temperament, okay? So when we look at behavior, you have to look at the temperament of the child, because if your goal is something and their goal is something else, you have to figure out how do we work with this temperament. And she did not do well with transitions, okay? Even if she knew we were going to go do something that was fun, that she was looking forward to, if she was in her little happy place doing something, moving her from point A to point B was always a temper tantrum. Always, always. Even with preparation, we're going to go do this and it's going to be fun. And it just didn't go well. So one of the things that I had shared with you earlier was validate the feelings, but the other one is offer choices, okay? And the choices come from you, okay? It can't be like an abundance of choices. So it's like, we're going to be leaving and we're going to a play station or a play place or whatever we're doing, whatever we have to do. So we're going. And I don't want to go. And it's like, I know, I can see you're having a lot of fun right now playing with your dollies. And would you like to leave them here? So when they're here, when you come back, or should we clean them up? And I don't want to go. And I was like, okay, so, well, we are going. So would you like to come with me on your own, or do you need me to help you? No, I'm not coming. I was like, oh, looks like you need me to help you. It's like, well, what else can you do? It's like, I see you're not happy about this right now, but we are going. And so if you, and here's another one. This is my favorite. How we often say, if you do this, then you can have that. So another beautiful little tiny little switch is when then. When you do this, then we do that. If just has a little bit of that, it rubs you a little bit funny, right? It's got a little bit of aggression. It's like, if you do this, and when just sounds like it's going to happen. So when you do this, then we can do that. So, when you have your shoes on, then we'll get going. Or, when you're ready, when we go and you show me you can do it yourself, that's great. Otherwise, I'll be happy to help you. And, next time you can have a turn yourself. So invariably, I would have a kicking and screaming child that I had, kicking and screaming, trying to wrestle them into a car seat. And really, in hindsight, I don't know why her car seat was behind my then husband's chair, because he would be getting the brunt of this temper tantrum, kicking the chair. His parenting skills were different than mine, shall I say. And he'd be saying to me, "Why is she doing that? Why is she kicking if you keep doing that, we're not going." And I'd say to him, "Just shh, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Just leave her be. Just leave her be. Give her a minute. Just don't say anything." And he's like, "Why is she doing that? Why is she?" And I'm like, "She just doesn't like transitions. It's just how she is. Just give her a minute. It's all good. Just all good." And so we'd start driving, and within 5 minutes, the little one in the back seat was now singing and perfectly fine. That is her temperament. She is 19. If you ask her if she throws something out of that she's not expecting, she won't kick and scream and kick you back of your car. But transitions, things that throw her off, that's just her temperament. We're born, we have our temperament. That's who we are. So I think it's really important to understand that it's important to give our kids choices. We all need to have a sense of control and power in our lives, no matter what age we are. Do you want to wear your red shirt or your blue shirt? Do you want to, do you want, carrots or broccoli? We need to feel a sense of power in our life. And also, by offering choices, we're showing our kids that they have the power to make decisions. So here's another one I want to share with you, is around trusting ourselves. Okay, so we want our kids to grow up and feel confident that they make good choices for themselves when we're not there. Okay, so when they're older and they're in high school or middle school, whatever, and you're not there to supervise, you want them to have had a lot of practice to trust their inner voice. Okay, and sometimes inadvertently, it gets drummed out of them in really funny, subtle ways. So, for example, put on your coat, it's cold outside. "No, I'm not cold right now." "Of course you're cold. It's winter, put on your coat." "Well, I'm not cold." "I'm not hungry." "Of course you're hungry. We're eating now and you're hungry." "But I'm not hungry." It's really important to let our kids trust that kind of inner voice, because they need to tap into it later, and also to have practice testing it out. So, you know what? Pick your battles, right? We're going outside now, and so here's your winter coat. I find it cold. I'm going to wear my coat. I'm not cold right now. I was like, "Okay, you know what? I'll bring it. Would you like to put it on and zip it up after, or do you want me to just hang on to it? And if you get cold, you can let me know." Don't say anything, let them have the experience, right? So you go outside. Well, of course, in a few minutes, they're going to be cold. "Oh, I'm cold, Mom." It's like, "Oh, are you okay? Let's zip up the coat." As opposed to "See, I told you that, if you were going to be cold." We don't need to do that. Let them have their own learning experience. We don't need to shove it in their face. Let them experience it. "I'm not hungry." It's like, "Well, you know what? We're having dinner now. If you're not hungry, that's fine." And you know what? We tend to overfeed children. They say that the size of their fist is really the amount of food that they need to eat. And children generally are better off at grazing as opposed to having a full meal. So, you know what? It's if that's their temperament and they're not big eaters, so you offer carrots and dip here and a little protein something here and a little bit of something else there. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to, their stomachs are going to not be they're going to get full quicker. I'm not hungry. It's like, you know what, that's fine. You know what, though, we'd like it if you join us at the table and you take a little bit if you want. If you're hungry later, we'll put up a little plate together and you can munch on it later. Like, why do we make, meals a battle? Like, we make these battles for ourselves that don't need to happen. I was asked to come and do a parenting session at a school. And this one mom says, the only way I can get my child to eat is if I let them ride their bicycle around the living room and I feed them bitefuls of food as they swing by on their bike. I was like, yeah, you're going to do that for your whole life? I was like, okay, you know what? What would you like to see happen here? Well, I want them to eat. I said, you know what? They're not going to starve themselves. A child, I promise you will not starve themselves, and you don't need to offer them 100 different things. And around food and children is a whole other topic, but I'm just going to say, they need to see it many, many, many times, just kind of in the periphery, not even like asking them to touch it or taste it or whatever. It just, if you have a variety of foods, like, we loved variety of foods. So we always ate international foods and veggies and whatever. And it just was, but nothing was shoved at the kids to eat it. It was just like, we were eating it. And then, we'd let them pick little bits of whatever they wanted to try. But a child has to see something many times before they actually even put it to their lips sometimes. So, you can have a kid who has like very adventurous palate, and you'll have kids that don't. And, my number 5 kid loved like really intense flavor, like green olives and, just intense flavors. And other kids are not like that. So, but you shouldn't be making bland, chicken nuggets no, you don't need to do that. Children aren't going to be texture. Some kids, and okay, so now we're going to talk about maybe children who are on a spectrum or whoever, like super sensory, might have sensory food issues. And that's a whole other topic, and you can call me about that separately. But again, be sensitive to your kid. If they are sensory oriented and textures bother them, then okay, so then be sensitive to that around what kind of foods can you offer that are sensory friendly to them. So when we talk about from conflict to cooperation, is understanding where is your kid at. I don't know what, I got to keep track of my time. I can't tell what time we are at. I don't know what age group we have in terms of children right now, but as I said, little, they need to feel a sense of power and in their little lives, feelings validated. Routines are important, consistency is important, and follow through. Like threats are not helpful. Okay, if you do that, you're not going to get a toy. We don't need to bribe our kids with stuff, and that's another piece, is that our kids have too much stuff, and really what they need from us is connection, and they don't need stuff. They need time with us. And I'll tell you a really sweet little thing I just learned recently was I read a really beautiful article about building mother-daughter relationships. And I'm very fortunate. I have 4 biological children and 1 stepdaughter that I've raised since she was 3. So I have 4 girls and 1 boy. And it talked about the importance of building a relationship with your daughters. Is important to develop it when they're young so that they'll have this relationship when they're older. And it was a really beautiful article. And I do have a parenting Facebook page and a parenting website. It's called Parenting by Heart, H-A-R-T, because that's my last name, Hart. So I sent the article to my girls. And I said, I remember like some special things that we would do together, but I'm curious, what were some of the special things that you guys remember? And so my youngest, my number 5, she said to me, well, she goes, Mom, I remember like we would sing rounds together. She goes, I really love that. She goes, but what I really remember and the most that I thought was really special was at nighttime, if I couldn't sleep and I was hungry, you would sit with me in the kitchen while I had cereal. And I just thought, how is that an important memory? And I said, oh, that's so interesting. I said, I don't really even remember that. She goes, oh, Mom, I was scared to go down to the kitchen and be in the dark. I didn't like being downstairs in the dark. And she said, so you would sit with me while I had cereal, and you never made me feel bad for keeping you up, and you just sit with me while I had my cereal. And she goes, and I told my girlfriend that, and my girlfriend said, your mom did that? She's so nice. And my daughter said, I know. And honestly, that touched me so much, because who knew that that was an important thing versus like all the millions of other things we may have done together, that was a memory for her that was special. And I've had parents sometimes say to me about small children, it's like, oh, they talk to me, all like they talk so much. They talk so much and they don't stop talking. I said, you know what? Enjoy it, because when they're older, they may stop talking, so you want to enjoy it when they do talk to you. And the real gift is accepting their feelings. When I talk about validate their feelings, accept how they feel, accept where they're at, not to judge, because we can be so judgmental. And you know what? That just shuts them down. It shuts us down. When you think about working with kids or dealing with children, it's no different than what you would want. Like, do you want to be shamed for something? No, and our kids don't want to be shamed either. And I'll share this story with you. So, daughter number 4. We had an agreement. Okay, I always had an agreement with the kids that they could tell me anything, and that if they needed to tell me, they would preface it by saying, Mom, I need to tell you something, but I'm worried you might be upset. I said, if you do that, I know to kind of ground myself. I said, I want you to always feel you can share things with me. I don't want you to feel you have to hide stuff or that you can't tell me things. And so that was our deal. And so my daughter was coming home late from some, being with some friends or something, and I would pick her up from the subway. It was late. She got in the car and she was very quiet, like unusually quiet. It's like, oh, everything okay? Yeah, everything okay. It's like, all right. So we got home and I said, oh, I'm just going to brush my teeth and then you can use the washroom. So when I came out of the washroom, she's already in bed, like the covers up over her face. And she's about 17 maybe at the time. She's still in high school. And I thought, well, that's weird that she's in bed. And I said, are you okay? She's like, yeah, I'm okay. And I was like, I'm thinking, this is weird that she's not getting up to wash up. But I thought, you know what? Just leave her be. So in the morning, she comes to me and she goes, Mom, I need to tell you something. And I was like, okay. She goes, I don't want you to judge me or my friends. And I was like, that's okay. Go ahead. And she's like, well, I want you to know, like, I tried pot, or whatever the kids call it, marijuana or whatever, weed. Tried weed. I'm showing my age right now. Sorry. She said, I tried weed for the first time last night. And I said, how was that for you? She goes, oh, it kind of made me feel weird. It made me feel anxious. And she goes, but I don't want you to judge me or my friends. And I said, I'm not judging you. I said, you know what? You're at an age that you're going to be curious and you're going to be, want to be experimental. I said, you know what? I would be worried if this becomes more important to you than anything else in your world and that you fall down a rabbit hole of this. I said, but, being curious is part of your age, to be understandable. And I said, whose weed was it? And she told me who it was. And it was this young boy who had some really serious family issues and was in and out of Covenant House. And really my heart went out to him. And I said, you know what? Kind of get that your friend uses that as a kind of a calming mechanism. And I said, you know what? I said, thank you for feeling comfortable enough to share that with me. And then she said to me, she goes, Mom, can I hug you? And I'm like, of course. And if you want your kids to have those important conversations with you, you have to be open. You have to ask them how they feel with something. You can't be judgy and throw stuff at them. It's just, that's not helpful. Yeah, we have all our opinions. It's funny, like, she's into tattoos. Well, I'm not a tattoo person, but that's her thing. And she's like, Mom, I know you don't like tattoos, and I'm like, It's okay. That's your thing. But you know what? She is a tattoo artist, and she's an artist actually. She's a tattoo artist. And when I turned 60, I said, I want something that I would like you to give me. And she's like, what's that? And I said, I'd like you to give me a tattoo. And she's like, no. And I'm like, yes. But I said, just a little tiny heart on my shoulder. I said, just a little tiny. I said, just would like you to give it to me. And that was a big deal for her because she knows I'm not a big tattoo person. But you know what? You do it. It's your body. You do what you want. I'm reading your comment, Jackie. Thank you. A lot of the work I did was in schools and daycares. And I always said, if you don't want someone to do that to you, please don't do that. So I had a beautiful mom reach out to me today, actually, just before I started this session. She's like, Bethleen, I need your advice. Her little boy, who's 3, he'll be going to school in September, but because he's a November baby, he's younger, right? So he's 3. And she said the teacher pulled her aside and said he wanted to play with the little boy, and the little boy said no, and so he hit him. And the teacher was telling this mom, and then what the mom found out after the fact was that the little boy, her son, told her that he was put in a chair. So basically, he was frustrated that the little guy that he wanted to play with said no. So as a 3-year-old, he was physical with him, which is completely age appropriate. So he's frustrated. This kid says no to play with him. And then the teacher punishes him for being frustrated and sits him in a chair, which now amplifies his situation and basically publicizes it to the group. And that really just breaks my heart, because what this kid needed was someone to validate his experience and say, you know what? I see that you're showing me you're frustrated that so-and-so wouldn't play with you. Don't talk about the hitting. When we comment about the behavior we don't like, we've now reinforced it. So it's like, oh, we don't hit our friends. Oh, no hitting. That there's hit. You know, when we say to kids, don't run, you know what they hear? They hear run. They don't hear don't. So if you don't, we reinforce the behavior you do want and validate their experience. So I see you're frustrated. You were hoping Joey would play with you, and he didn't want to play, and that maybe you may hurt your feelings, or you felt sad. You don't say anything about the hitting. You say, you know what? So maybe we can work something out. And so he's like, would you like to do something with me? Or let's see if maybe Joey wants to play later. Maybe Joey just wants to play by himself right now. Joey, we have to give it a name. I have to make up a name. Okay. Mike really wants to play with you, but I see that you're having fun on your own. So when you're done with this truck, would you like Joey to play with you, or would you like him to play on his own? And you give the kids choices. It's so interesting when we give kids the power. They switch right away. If the kid knows that there's a power struggle here, like Joey, Mike really wants to play with you. Mike's gonna dig in his heels and be like, no, I don't want to play. And this was a perfect example is with my son Ben at a birthday party. Okay, birthday party. He's just getting presents. It's really hard. Like, don't expect kids to share. The word share, by the way, is just not cool. Shared sounds like I have to give something away and I'm never going to see it again. Taking turns is a little bit easier. It's like, oh, your turn, my turn. It's coming back to you. Share is just this nebulous, like, what does that mean, share, No. And if you've ever dealt with toddlers, my favorite's the toddler's creed. If it looks like mine, it's mine. If I gave it to you, it's mine. If it's mine, it's mine. If you have it, it's mine. It's that whole thing. I know some men like that too, but that's a whole other conversation. So it's Ben's birthday, and he's gotten a new toy. And some kid wants to play with it. And of course, Ben doesn't want him to. And I said, you know what? That's Ben's new truck. He just got it. And so, it's okay. He's not ready to share. He's not ready to give turn yet. It's like, Ben, if when you're ready, would you let Gavin know that he could have a turn? And as soon as you do that, when the child feels like they have the power, that's when they're like, oh yeah, sure. And then they hand it over. So something I want to share with you is, as a parent or an educator, learning to use that kind of language is really difficult. It's like trying to learn a new language, like learning a foreign language. You kind of have to do a translation in your brain, because what normally we want to come out of our mouth is like not okay. It's not like, the stuff that we would typically want to say, like, no hitting, or that's not nice, or don't do that with your brother, or play with your brother. Come on, he wants you to play with him. We have to do a translation. It's like, you know what? You guys don't have to play together right now. It looks like you guys need a break from one another. You don't have to play together. If you want to, you can, but it's a translation, okay? For us, it's like learning a new language. But for our kids, it's their mother tongue. And I'll give you an example of that. So I went to my first parenting class. Ben was 3. I learned about kind of validating his feelings. He's now 5. We pick up his little friend David to go to kindergarten, little carpool. David gets in the car and he's really upset because his little brother broke a toy of his. And so little David gets in the car and he says, "I hate Gabriel. He just broke my transformer." And my son Ben, who's 5, says to his little buddy, he goes, "Ah, that must be hard when your brother breaks your stuff." And this little boy goes like this. Yeah. And like I was tearing up. I'm driving like, my son has empathy. But that's the gift we can give our kids, right? Is that when we validate their feelings and experience, it holds them up. Change a mood, not a mind. Let the bad feelings out before you can let the good feelings in. And this is in any relationship. As an adult, we need to be validated. We don't want somebody to talk us out of how we feel. And you know what? If our kids come to us with something, we don't need to solve it. We don't need to make it better. We don't need to always make everything good, because you know what? Life isn't always easy. So let's have faith in them and how they're going to work it out. Like, wow, that sounds like a really difficult situation. How do you think you want to handle that? Like, I have faith in you. How do you think you want to handle that? I don't know. Do you want some suggestions or ideas? Or do you think you want to work that out on your own? How's our time? Oh, I think I'm almost there. Okay, one more thing. Siblings, in case you need it. When the kids would fight, it also was attention seeking, would bring mom or dad in. And so instead of saying, you know what, you guys seem to be having difficulty with this, it's like, I'd love to hear how you guys work it out. Because if I work it out, you may not like my solution. Like, maybe they're fighting over a TV show or something. It'll be like, my solution would be like, nobody plays this video game. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to work it out, and then I'll come back and check. Invariably, be like, Mom, we worked it out. And it's basically saying, I have faith and trust in you that you're going to sort this out, but I'm here if you need my help. And when a kid is having a meltdown, you know what? Let them have a meltdown. Sometimes, do you not need a meltdown sometimes? It's like, you know what? I see you're just having a really rough time right now. Maybe they're hungry or tired or not feeling well or whatever the case is. We have to sometimes look at what are the circumstances around this. But in any kind of conflict situation, step out of the power struggle. Don't put fire with fire. Just de-escalate yourself if you need to, and you can model that. Many a time I've taken a pillow and said, I need to get my bad feelings out right now, and whack at the pillow. It's like, let the child have a turn. You do it too. Let's get her, and then it can be silly and be, it's like, let's just jump up and down. Let's make crazy faces, and as I said, it changes the mood. But anyway, thank you for your time and attention. This is my passion and love.